people coming in. Hello and welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Clive Saunders and I'm the chair of the Watford African Caribbean Association. We do have with us members of our Sickle Cell and Thalassemia Support Group. This is the group of people within our association that actually seeks to coordinate the work that we do around sickle cell and thalassemia as such. Some of you may be aware, and certainly you will be now, that annually on the 19th of June each year, it's been designated as a Sickle Cell Awareness Day. As I've said in the invite that some of you may have seen, sickle cell is in fact the most common genetic condition that exists in the UK. So you've heard about leukemia and all sort of other things that seem to have a higher profile, but actually in terms of the impact, sickle cell is the most common condition. And it may be accidental or otherwise that because it primarily affects people of African origin, it doesn't seem to have the profile that you might expect it to have, bearing in mind it's the most common event. What we try to do here in the association with our sickle cell and thalassemia group is to offer support and to raise awareness. And tonight is one of those occasions that we're seeking to, as we do, raise awareness of this condition, because if we are not prepared to do that, then we can't necessarily expect other people to do this. And as the chair of this organization, I believe part of our remit as an organization is to elevate these issues that impacts on the well-being of our community to the highest level, hence these occasions. So tonight, what we are going to do is we are going to hear from John, and in a moment we'll ask him to introduce himself. And we're also going to hear from Asiawu Iman, who is the local sickle cell nurse. So whilst I'm welcoming you all, I'd give a particular welcome to those two individuals. We'll say something about more about themselves when we do get to that point in time. We did also invite one of our local GPs, but haven't seen her on air as yet, so I'm not going to say any more about her just in case she doesn't happen to make it. She was going to come back to me. Before we kick off, though, I did also want to use this occasion to remember one of our long-standing members who passed away earlier on this month, and that is Mrs. Iris Lusac. Iris was, you would have to say, one of the founder members of this organization going back 47 years ago. And she was one of the most steadfast supporters of this organization as long as she was able. And we're sad to see her passing, but we certainly hope that she will have that everlasting peace that her tireless effort over many years deserves. So I said earlier on, what we're going to do, and we're going to start off with a bit of an update of a national picture from John. We're then going to hear from Asiawu, and then we are going to open up for questions and comments for a bit of sharing of your own experiences that you bring to this session. As I've said, the session is being recorded, so we'll put it out there on YouTube after the event. I should also take the opportunity before I get into it to remind you that this week is actually quite a popular week, because actually we have a Sickle Cell Awareness Day on Monday, and then tomorrow you may all be aware that we are marking Windrush Day on the 75th anniversary of that generation. And as somebody who arrived here at the tail end of that generation, I am, maybe among some of us here too, one of those Windrush people. And I should just also say, though, that often people would associate Windrush with the Caribbean, but actually Windrush is associated with our African brothers and sisters too, who arrived there between the period in question up to 1973. So it's a day for all of us to celebrate. And in fact, there's reason to celebrate and as well to commiserate, because of course we know some of the difficulties that Windrush generation have faced, and we just heard on the news today about some of the difficulties that people have had been sent back in the 50s and 60s when they were ill, and these are people who came here to support this nation. So I think we need to ourselves big up our people and our contribution that we've made, and the contribution that we continue to make tonight. So I think you probably heard enough from me. So I'm now going to kind of open up, and Marcia, if you could just put a note in the chat for John to give us that national update, and then we'll.
John can hear now. He said he can hear via his iPhone.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. In which case, John, I'm going to go over to you and say welcome. If you'd like to just introduce yourself, John, to those people who may not know you, and just tell us something about what's been happening nationally and what we can look ahead to. Welcome, John.
I hope you can hear me. Okay, that's wonderful.
John, before you start, can I ask, if you're not speaking, if you can go on mute, because I can hear some plates rattling in the background.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Oh.
Yeah, and I apologize to everyone because there's some feedback because I'm looking at you on the screen, but also using my mobile phone to talk to you. So apologies for the technical difficulties this evening. First thing I want to say, for those of you who don't know me, I'm John James. I'm the Chief Officer of the Sickle Cell Society. And a big thank you to Clive and all of the Watford team for inviting me here this evening. And nice to meet those people I haven't met before. I just want to echo what Clive said, because I'm a man of a particular age, and I'm also one of the Windrush babies, if you like. So it's important that we celebrate and acknowledge the contribution our forefathers and relatives and friends have made to this country. And thank you also for those of you who helped raise awareness on Sickle Cell Awareness Day earlier this week. What I'm going to do now is give you a quick overview of some of the progress we're making since the all-party parliamentary group report, No One's Listening. And we are making progress. It's not enough, and I'm not complacent to think the progress that I'm going to describe to you is going to be the panacea for everything to get better for people who live with sickle cell. But there are signs of movement and listening. So where I want to start is with NHS England. So in the No One's Listening report, we made it absolutely clear that people living with sickle cell have a dreadful experience in accident and emergency wherever they might be in the country, whether it's Watford, whether it's Bristol, whether it's Middlesbrough, Coventry, wherever it is in the country. So one of the things that NHS England are proposing is that they are going to pilot something called a hyperacute unit. Now, those hyperacute units are already in place for stroke, and they're already in place for cardiac services and cancer services. So what this would mean is that if you have sickle cell, rather than going to A&E, you would bypass A&E and have direct access to a specialist to get your care and get your analgesia in time. And these are going to be pilots, so this is not going to happen everywhere. These are going to be piloted, possibly 1 or 2 in London, and that's because London has the biggest concentration of people living with sickle cell, and 1 in the northwest of England. That's the plan if centres submit their pilot submissions. So what it would mean, over a period of well over a year, there would be patients who would bypass A&E in this pilot and get access to specialist care. The evidence, so this is evidence-based, the evidence suggests that if you get to a specialist in time, your outcomes and experience are a lot better. So that's the first thing that is being considered by NHS England. And just so you know that this isn't something that is going to happen in the next 18 months, 2 years. The plan is to try and get these pilots up and running by September, October of this year. So that's not very far away. Now, people will say, well, these are pilots in London and possibly outside of London. When is this going to happen for the rest of the country? Well, I can't answer that question because we want to see that the pilot work. And then there'll be the question of how it is rolled out and whether there are funds to roll it out. The good news is that these pilots will be fully funded by NHS England. So this is money that they're throwing at the pilot to see that they work. So it's not asking a trust to say, look, we want you to do this and get on and do it with, and we're talking considerable sums of money here. So that's the acute element. The Sickle Cell Society have also made clear in the No One's Listening report that community services for people who live with sickle cell are woeful, are appalling. And you will know in Watford that when community nurses leave, they don't get replaced, and it's added to other nurses' work. So as part of these plans, there will be funding on a non-recurrent basis go into community services, to strengthen community services. So those pilots will have access to more resources for nurses, psychologists, and services that we, the Sickle Cell Society, are providing as well. So these are people living with sickle cell who provide peer mentoring support to help people not access A&E as regularly as they have been in the past, and that's due to mentoring support, better understanding of how they manage their condition, and helping to build up resilience and confidence. So there'll be funding, and that's only for London. The community services funding is only for London, and we're getting a small element of that. So that's the first important point about the changes that are being planned by NHS England as a consequence of the No One's Listening report. The second plan is around establishing digital care records. So we know that in the past, if somebody with sickle cell is visiting a relatives in the north of England or the Midlands, wherever it might be, outside of London, if they have to attend accident and emergency in a crisis, many healthcare professionals are reluctant to give them levels of morphine or ketamine that they would normally get from their acute home provider. And there are other problems in A&E as well. So the digital care record helps to enable the patient to say that it is safe to give me this level of pain relief. Here it is in the record, look at it on the record yourself. Nobody's asking you to go over it or under it, but just this is the level of care that I would normally receive from my specialist centre. So there are plans to have this digital record in place. This may take a little longer than September and October. So there are plans to think of some interim healthcare cards that everybody who has sickle cell can have in the interim until the digital care records are up and running. So that's the second piece of work that they're working on. The third piece of work is around free prescriptions. So you'll know as a group that we've been advocating for free prescriptions for people who live with sickle cell for decades and decades and decades. The reality, and this was discussed at the last meeting of the all-party parliamentary group, is that it's very unlikely that this current government will allow free prescriptions, largely because the NHS has its challenges, financial ones included. So it's not looking likely that we will enable free prescriptions. So what will happen instead in the short term? There will be a campaign to increase the uptake of the prepayment certificate, which does deliver a saving. So there'll be a campaign to do that. And I can say now that at the last APPG meeting, which was last week, there were patients in the audience who hadn't even heard of the prepayment scheme. Others had and were taking advantage of it, but it's quite clear that not everybody in the sickle community knows that there is the prepayment scheme that could help with the cost of prescriptions. And as I say, we're hoping this will be a short-term measure until we campaign to get free prescriptions and the Treasury allows that to happen. The second bit of that campaign, and not many people do know about this, is there's a scheme called the Low Income Scheme. And if you are on a low income, you can also have access to support with costs for prescriptions. So the campaign will not only look at prepayment, it will advise people how they can access the low income scheme if they are on a low income for prescriptions. So those are the three main areas nationally that we're working with NHS England at the moment. There are other things planned, so these are not the only three things. There's work that we are scoping on getting better access to automated red cell exchange across the country. There's work that we're doing with genomics and sickle cell. So there's lots of other things, but these are still in early days. The three ones that I've mentioned the hyperacute units, the digital care records, and the campaign for supporting prescription costs are the ones that are rapidly being developed at the moment. So let me just stop there on those three things. The other final thing, which I think is important to mention nationally, is about, and Clive and others who have heard me speak before will be aware of this, we've been working hard to get more licensed, safe, effective, disease-modifying treatments for sickle cell for many years. We had a new one called Prasnubab approved in the last 18 months. But because there's conflicting evidence about how effective it is currently under review. Let me stress that it's safe. So Prasnubab is safe. It's not a question about the safety of this new treatment, but the reality is one trial showed that it was really, really effective for patients. The second trial showed that it wasn't very effective. And just to make this real, I speak to consultants almost every day, and what they'll say to me, and I'm just making this up in terms of numbers, but they'll say to me, John, I've got 20 patients on Prasnubab, 10 are doing really, really well, 10 it's not having much of an impact. So that's the reality about Prasnubab. The European Medicines Agency are going to revoke the license, but the decision as to whether or not the license remains for that new treatment in the UK is still in the hands of the MRHA. So as of today, for the UK, they haven't made a decision. I think they can only make three decisions. Either they go with the European line, which is withdraw the license. They say that it's safe, and for those that it works, they'll continue funding it under the NHS, or there'll be some halfway house between those two options. So that's Prasnubab. If you haven't seen our website, we are having a patient education day on the first Saturday, the 1st of July. There are a few tickets left. It's online and in person somewhere near Oxford Street. I can't remember the venue at the moment. It's nearly sold out, but there are tickets on. Why this education day is important is this will be the first time there is information about gene therapy. So there are plans that are moving rapidly about trying to get gene therapy as a curative option for sickle cell. But the reality, hence the patient education day, is not many healthcare professionals or people within the sickle community really understand what gene therapy is, what the risks are, and what it might mean for the future. So it will focus around gene therapy, but there'll be other information about the pipeline of novel treatments that are available to treat sickle cell. So those are the key things that are happening in terms of new treatments. I've explained the three areas that are being prioritised from the No One's Listening report by NHS England. And that probably is a good point for me to draw breath and stop. I know the technology is not wonderful, and you may hear some sort of repeating of what I've said. So I apologise for that, but I'll stop and clarify anything that I said that isn't clear, or answer any questions. And again, thank you, Clive, and the Watford team for your invitation this evening.
Okay. I think it might be appropriate, John, to pick up any questions so people, because I can't see any in the chat as yet. I mean, so please, if you'd like to ask a question, do put it in the chat. But I mean, I might kick off by asking one or two questions while people are thinking what they might want to ask John. And one of the questions, I suppose, that comes to mind, where is it? Well, the more than one question, but I mentioned earlier on about the fact that this is the most common genetic condition in the UK. Have you got any data regarding the level of investment that is going into sickle cell when you compare it to some of the other blood conditions, and how well are we doing in terms of gaining access to that? I don't know if you have that kind of information.
We do have that information. It was presented at the last all-party parliamentary group, and the answer to your question, Clive, is we're doing badly. So if you compare sickle to cystic fibrosis, and let's be clear here, cystic fibrosis affects 99% of the white Caucasian population. Sickle cell affects mainly people whose heritage is from Africa, the Caribbean, some Latin countries, and so forth. There are huge disparities. So the best way to illustrate that is if you look at treatments, new treatments to treat cystic fibrosis, there are over 500. For haemophilia, so these are like conditions, I'm comparing apples and apples and not comparing apples and pears. For haemophilia, there's over 100. For sickle cell, today there's 2. So that tells you, in a very simple example, that we're not doing very well in comparison. And of course, in both those conditions, sickle cell is far bigger than them. So there are now, just to tell you what the latest figures are, that there are over 18,000 people with sickle cell in this country. Hundreds of thousands more living with the trait or carriers. For cystic fibrosis, it's about 10,000 people living with CF, and haemophilia is a smaller number. So for the biggest genetic condition, as you say, Clive, the evidence is there that other conditions which affect different populations have better funding.
Thanks very much for that, John. I still can't see any other questions, but my other question relates to your campaign that you mentioned, the free prescription campaign to increase updates. So my question really was, it's a national scheme. How can we engage in that, and what can we do to help the campaign?
Great question, Clive. It's not our campaign. We'll work with NHS England, but it's NHS England's campaign as a response to all the things that we've been saying need to change and improve. And the way that your group will be able to help with is about spreading the word. So when the campaign does come out, we'll be sharing that with all the support groups so you can share locally. And actually, anybody who hasn't got sickle cell but gets lots of prescriptions at £10 a time, the prepayment certificate is going to be helpful. And equally, if they didn't know about the low income scheme, then that's going to be helpful. So it has wider impact, but the focus will be on the sickle cell community.
Okay, my final question, and hopefully some other people will have some questions too, John, is in relation to, I heard the other day, I'm sure it said something like the number of people given blood had gone up quite a lot. Number of people from our community, from the people of African heritage. However, it's still a drop in the ocean, as I understand it, in relation to what is needed. Do you know how can we help with that kind of campaign, and what has really kind of driven that increase. I don't know if you have any intelligence in relation to that, and lessons we can learn that maybe we can help to get more people donating.
Thank you, Clive, and we welcome your support and help in getting more people to donate. The current situation is that whilst more of us Black people and mixed race people are donating blood, the figures remain that it's still about 1% of us nationally that donate. The vast majority of people who donate blood are white Caucasians. We run an initiative called Give Blood, Spread Love, and we sign up lots of new people who want to donate blood. And let me remind the audience that if you are a healthy carrier of sickle cell, you can donate blood. There's a sort of myth that, oh, carriers can't donate blood. Yes, they can. So the scheme that we run, details are on our website, but I can send it to you separately. What I would ask is that you spread the word, and if there are people in the Watford area who want to sign up to give blood, then just email us and we'll facilitate the signing up so that they can give blood locally. They don't have to travel. We would signpost them to their nearest centre to donate.
I have a further question, John, relating to that, and you might have some intelligence again about this. I've seen on social media a suggestion that if you've had the COVID vaccine, you are not able, you've been turned away from blood banks and so on. It was a bit surprising to me to hear that is the case. I don't know if you've heard about that, and what awareness, if any, you have of any truth whatsoever within that.
One of the problems with social media is the propensity to have rumours and myths. It's not something that I'm aware of. I know many people who've had the COVID vaccine and donated blood. So it's certainly not something that should be a barrier to donating blood. And I've never heard that.
Yeah, no, I saw it in a WhatsApp posting from somebody who said that they'd gone to give blood, and they were told that if you've had the vaccine, you can't give blood. So maybe we just need to explore that, because I think we don't want people being put off.
Indeed.
If it's not actually a factual position. Okay. Anybody else with any question? And just to say that I have put the email, the website for the Sickle Cell Society in the chat. So if anybody wants to go and check on the things out that John has mentioned, you can go there too. Okay. I see Vivian has put in there that patients could have access to their medication via the NHS app. They should be able to log on to this if they present to another acute provider. I don't know what, I'm not sure I understand that. John, do you understand?
I think I understand the question, that the app is another way of getting information, but I think some of the information isn't so readily available on the app, and I know that some patients have experienced problems with the app. So the digital care record is intended for both patients and healthcare professionals. So I'm not saying that the NHS is not an option, but it's not an option that works so well at the moment for patients.
Okay. John, are you able to stay with us for a bit longer? Because
yes,
I think it might be an opportune time to invite you, or to let you introduce Asiawu, who is the sickle cell nurse, and who could tell us about the role, how we can work together, and anything else about yourself or the role that you're in that might be useful for us. And again, we'll take some questions, and any other questions that people have, that might be helpful to get John's view on, please continue to put them in the chat. And of course, you can always put your camera on, put your hand up, and we'll talk to you too. So as you will welcome, it's great to have somebody in your role. Talk to us, please.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my name's Asia. I'm the new Sickle Cell CNS at Watford. I'll give a little bit of my background before I speak about my role. So I finished uni in 2020, and my first job was as a sickle cell and hematology and oncology nurse at St. George's Hospital. I stayed there for 18 months or a year and a half. And then I moved on to oncology for about 6 months in Croydon Hospital before I started here at Watford in February. And so far, it's been hectic. There's so much going on. Obviously I knew that I was starting a new post, so no one really knows about me yet. So I'm still trying to get people to find out who I am and see the services I provide. But like I previously mentioned, I'm starting a whole new clinic, so nobody really knows about the sickle cell CNS role. My job is really to make sickle patients' life easier. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm going to see the patients who are admitted at Watford, sickle cell patients who are admitted, and trying to get a bit of background from them. We're trying to complete an audit as nobody really knows how many sickle patients we're receiving in a day, in a week, in a year. So while I'm starting a new clinic, I'm collecting information of all the patients that are here. I'm also trying to collect information of any patients who live around the community, and I'm trying to give what do you call it, presentations about sickle cell. I did not realize how many nurses didn't know that sickle cell was actually an issue, a very common issue in Watford Hospital. So I have a talk, I think on the 4th of July. I'm not sure where yet, but I was hoping to share the information with the WACA Association and let them know whoever wants to attend. Um, and hopefully get as many people as I can involved in my role, because at the moment we're still trying to figure out how we can get other organizations such as King's, St. George's, guys, how we can bring them all together to help with the upbringing, should I say, of the new role and give as much information to the community as we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you said you started in your roles in February.
Yeah.
And have you the indication I've got is that you've clearly encountered some sicklers in that time, but you're doing this audit to try and capture more of a picture.
Yeah.
So on balance, I mean, have you been seeing like patients weekly, sort of so far? I mean, because we've not got much of an intelligence on that at all.
Yeah, at the moment, because it's summertime, not many patients are coming in.
Mhm.
When I was back at St. George's, we normally see all the sickle patients during the winter because that's when all the infections come, when all the sickling happens. So at the moment, I think I've seen around maybe 17 patients in the last 4 or 5 months. So it's still quite quiet. But hopefully I can build up my workload, build up my patient information and see who I can invite from different trusts as well, not just from Watford.
Yeah. And so far, from your engagement with those patients, what sort of feedback have you been getting about your role, about the kind of support that they require, support they receive, and etc., etc.
So I think as John previously mentioned, I've been getting a lot of feedback regarding the A&E admissions, how most nurses, they just don't really know what the disease is. They don't know how to care for it. And sometimes they get this stigma of like they're just here for drugs, because with sickle cell, you don't really have any physical um implications. They're more internally. So I think that's the main thing. And also the fact that they tell them what they need. So they tell the nurses what they need, but they just choose to ignore it. So I think for my role, what I'm trying to do is trying to build up the knowledge for the nurses to understand that this is how sickle cell works, and this is how we can improve the care given to patients.
Absolutely. And I see. As somebody, have you been involved with your HCC, John?
Yeah, let's be live. I was just saying, welcome, Asiawu. Nice to see you, and good luck with your role at Watford. Your
Thank
point
you.
about the other hospitals is that you should be part of an HCC, a hemoglobinopathy coordinating centre. So hopefully they are helping you with what you need to do at Watford.
Yeah, there's a lot of networking involved. I'm not sure if you know about Ralph. He's the head of the HCCMD
I
team.
know Ralph very well. Yeah, I know Ralph very
Yes,
well. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So he's
St
connecting
George
me
is
to
a part
everyone.
of that network as well. St George is a part of that network as well. That's
Yeah,
great. That's good. I'm glad you're linked in there. So
yeah.
they've
I'm
got
connected to
support.
everyone.
And just to say, we have made some connections with the group of BAME staff within West Herts Hospital. I don't know if you have been connected with them as yet. Where they're bringing the Black, Asian, American ethnic staff together to look at some of the issues that they're facing. And it might be something that one of our board of directors here, Daisy, actually works for West Herts part-time too. So I was talking to the person who was the chair of that group, so it might be that we can connect you. But actually, we would want to work closely with you, because actually one of the things that we've been campaigning for locally is to get a presence like yourself at the hospital. And for a long time, and there's some of my colleagues here who have been more involved in that than I've been over the years. So that's why we're particularly welcoming of this development. And I think we've invited you to come to a meeting that we're going to have, when it may be that you can make that presentation. I don't know how long your presentation is that you're saying to tell people about sickle cell.
I think, well, I haven't presented yet, so I'm not really sure, but I think it shouldn't be more than half an hour, maybe 20 minutes tops.
Okay. Well, we might need to have a conversation about that. But just in terms of any questions that people might have, I can't see. Does anyone else have a question, or I want to share an experience, because we want to open up now to see what people's views are. If you are a sickler or you have a trait, you might want to share any experience that you've got that we can reflect on. As I say, the Sickle Cell Society has been working national for decades around this topic, and we ourselves have had our support group for decades too. But one of the issues that we found is that people have not been so forthcoming in actually coming forward. So one of the things I'm open with you and Ro Asi, that the group that we have can work closely with yourself and make people aware that we're here to be supportive. And
have we got any carers on at the meeting?
which meeting?
This one. Are there any carers here that could tell us of their experience?
Yes. If there's anyone here who's caring for a sickler, then again we'd like to hear your experience and how issues that you're having around access. Did anyone else have any questions for Asi or John, or any contributions, as I said earlier on?
Clive, it's not a question, but I just want to encourage people listening today that we've got a real opportunity to make changes for sickle cell through what I described earlier about the digital care records, the hyperacute unit pilot, and indeed the work that Asiawu is doing at Watford. So it's really, really important that the sickle community in Hertfordshire, in and around the two hospitals you mentioned, Clive, engage and make their voice heard, because the more we hear the voice of the sickle, the more it helps us get the change that is long overdue.
Thanks very much for that, John. And I certainly would concur with all of that. I think I often do say to people that if we are not willing to take care of our own business, then how can we expect other people to do it? And I think it's good in a way that the people that we have on the call are not indicating that they have a particular issue. I don't have a particular issue, but I do know we have various kinds of blood conditions that impact on our community, sickle being the main one. So we all need to kind of be a part of looking at how we support each other in dealing with the different challenges that we face. So one of the things that I would want to reiterate that if people can give blood, then please do. John, on that question, I'll ask you this thing, because I think I've drawn the conclusion that I'm a bit too old to give blood in my late 60s. But remind me, I believe there's an age limit, isn't there?
There is an age limit. There is an age limit. I think it's 70 actually. I think you're young enough to still give blood, Clive. So you should. There is indeed an age limit, but I think you haven't crossed that age limit yet.
Oh right, okay. I've got 200 bit years. So in that case, we probably don't have many people on the call who are above that age. And I don't want to, and Pearline, I know you're young at heart, so you might even be young enough.
No, Clive, no, I'm way past that. You all.
Nice to see you, Pearline.
Yeah. Okay. So we wanted to do a bit of raising of awareness, and I think we've done a bit of that. I can't see any more questions in the chat. So there are a few other points that I wanted to raise as we've got an audience, and we'll put this out on YouTube, as I say. The Watford African Caribbean Association has had a difficult period, actually before COVID and certainly subsequently. We've been helped by a dedicated band of volunteers that has enabled us to continue to do this and other things that we've done. In fact, I think, bearing in mind the dearth of support that we've had, we've done some brilliant work over the last 3-4 years. But what we do have a number of people who in our community who seem to think that actually the issues and challenges that we face are behind us, that issues like racism and racial discrimination was a thing of the past. And therefore, organizations like ourselves that go back to the 70s when we face real, you might say, in-your-face racism, because that's not there any longer, then we don't really need to get involved. Let people sort it out, and then we'll observe from the side. I'm going to urge you all not to do that, because actually, when you look at the data that there is around our experiences, John has highlighted the specific sickler situation, sickle cell position. But whichever walk of life you look at, whether it's in education, whether it's in employment, whether it's in access to various other healthcare facilities, whether it's in fact our engagement with the criminal justice system, what we see is that there's a phenomenal amount of disadvantage that we suffer, and the root of it has got to be institutional racism and discrimination. Now, we can sit on the fence and say, all right, we are okay, and we don't need to worry about that. But actually, that doesn't change the reality of the facts that impacts on most of us. And when we walk down the streets, whatever people might say to our face, there's still a perception that we are not good enough. The association actually needs people to be on board in seeking to change the narrative that exists around these things. And even amongst ourselves, you know, some of you may be aware that we've had in the past our supplemental school, which we've had to suspend, but some of those needs are still there. So I'm kind of going to ask people to really consider signing up to be a member of the association. Membership is free. We have, and we're particularly seeking to expand our active membership into the Three Rivers area, because we've developed a relationship with Three Rivers, through which I have to say we've had some funding that has enabled us to take on some administrative support. And Gemma Johnson Gaston, who is with us, is performing that function for us, and is much needed. But we need more people to be on board so that we can actually be a part of helping to uplift our community, and more so than we're able to at the moment. So please do consider doing that. I would also point to the fact that on the 30th of next month, we have our annual general meeting. This is where we come together annually to reflect on what we've been able to achieve over the last year and to look ahead. One of the things that we're going to show as a part of that next time, we've got a video, because we've done a recording, a video recording of looking at Sam Lusak, who is one of our founder member. And we are going to show that video that's been done looking at his life and his journey and his contribution. So, Asiawu is going to be joining us and talking a bit about what she's been able to do, and maybe she'll tell us a bit more about what has happened up to date. So if you've not received an invite to that and you'd like to come along, then put your details in the chat and we'll send you an invite. And equally, if you'd like to join as a member, put your details in the chat and we'll send you a membership form so that you can join with us on our journey to uplift our community. I think I'm just going to check if there are anything else that people might have put in the chat. If not, it just leaves for me to, I think we had originally scheduled that this meeting might last about an hour, and we are kind of just coming up on an hour. I think you've seen a bit more time in the schedule, but actually we thought it might have lasted about an hour anyway, so we are there. I can't see anything more in the chat. So
no, I can't see any more questions. That's it.
Okay. That being said,
hold on, Pearline's got her hand up.
Pearline?
John, I just wanted to say that one of the things we have often talked about is visiting school, which the group used to do, but we haven't done that for a while. And having Assi on board and having Gemma on board, is that something we could look at, and whether Assi would be happy to be part of that if we visit schools? Because I've heard from other people the need for schools or teachers to be educated on the traumas of sickle cell.
Okay, so it's a question really for you, Assi. We have always had this intention, as Pearline has said, but obviously we have lacked the capacity. Do you see it as part of your remit to work with us to try and broaden that knowledge? It appears from what you've said that may well be the case, but just would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to contact schools. At the moment, I'm trying to speak to the children's CNS at Peace Children's Centre, because what I'm trying to do is trying to make the transfer from child pediatrician to adult a bit easier. So I feel like talking to schools will be very beneficial. And as well, there's some kids who probably don't even know about the disease, and they could help their friends. So yeah, I'm more than happy to reach out, and I can let you guys know when I've heard back.
Okay, yes, please. And Perlin's mentioned Gemma. So if you we've got your details anyway. So if we try and link up so that we can keep connected, and with you in place, one of the things that we could begin to do is to maybe having some regular quarterly meeting of our sickle cell support groups, where we might invite you to come along to share your intelligence. And I believe there is also another colleague who might be working across the piece, looking at the I think there's older people who are sicklers across the county, and maybe we'll just talk about outside of this meeting about doing that. Okay, so anything else from anyone else? If not, I'm going to use the opportunity to extend our thanks to our guest speakers and to everybody else who's been able to join. So no, I can't see anyone else who wants to come in. So on behalf of the association and our sickle cell support group, I really would like to thank you, John, as always, for the valuable messages that you bring to us and for the continuing support of the society. And long may that continue. And who knows, one of these days we might be coming here and saying that the investment in sickle cell is consistent with what it should be across the piece. And Asi, on our part, welcome again. You're one of us. Don't feel that you're a stranger to what it is that we're about. I say that if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem, and you're part of the solution, and therefore we're going to be with you on that. So for the rest of you who are here this evening, thank you very much for joining in. People who want to understand what is happening here tonight, then please, I will send out a link to the YouTube video of this. So do share it with others so that people can actually get that insight that we explored tonight. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening and a wonderful Windrush Day tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Clive. Good to see you all. Nice to have met you, Asi. So all the best.
You.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, let's stop the recording. Ooh.